right. There we go. There we go. Squibby, you just arrived. I just went live. How's it going, man? How you doing today?
I'm here.
What are you doing up at this unholy hour? We're the same time zone, right?
No.
So it's actually 8 o'clock where you are, so you should be very awake at this point.
I'm going to try to appreciate your humor.
All right, and I feel awful for bringing you guys in this morning on a Sunday. I'll tell you what, I guarantee you're going to have a great afternoon nap. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, Squib, I'm going to let you want to go get some coffee, and I'll take care of the intro stuff and the warm-up. Does that sound okay?
I have been denied access to coffee this morning.
Why? Do you guys no electricity or what?
Our Sunday routine is to go out and get coffee.
Okay, so go out into the kitchen and get some coffee, and then you can drink more later.
To go down to Speedway and get coffee.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm coming in commando style.
Wait a minute, what? Wait. You mean what? I don't even want to know. I don't even know what your definition of that is. I really don't want to know. But hey, you know what? You do you. I want you to be comfortable, and I want you to enjoy the show this morning. So, hey, man, whatever works. By the way, I'm going to make a pot of the Speedway for my colleagues up at work. I think tomorrow I'm going to take one of the packets that you sent me and just see what people's reactions are to it. I mean, I think this stuff is fantastic. So nobody complains because they walk into a hot pot of coffee. You know, they're pretty excited. But oh man, hey, thank you for sending me that coffee again. I do appreciate that. Arbuckles is fantastic, man.
Isn't it? That's some good stuff.
The Arbuckle, the Mexicali, it's just so different. I think that's part of it is the taste, the cinnamon, the chocolate. I was actually chewing on some of the beans, and the beans were kind of sweet. So here, hang on a second. Doggy's freaking out. Let me go see what's going on with Charlie. Guys, we'll start the intros here in a sec here. Charlie, come here.
Good morning, all.
Go. Come on, dog. Let's go. Come on, in here. There we go. I love my dog, and he normally is not a very loud dog, but if he sees or hears something that's just not right, then he just starts freaking out. And since I'm awake, he's awake, so he thinks he needs to be more awake than me, but we're ready to go. So, Squib, how's your morning going? Are you doing good?
About as good as I can.
Right.
The subject today, I'm hoping I can be somewhat useful.
Well, I mean, the truth is that the simple solution would just be, go to the range and rent a bunch of guns. But I think there's some other things that kind of come along with it. And there's some pitfalls that people run into when they buy that first handgun. And my inspiration for the topic was helping the group of family members last weekend get comfortable with pistols because they're all taking a concealed carry class in about 2 weeks. And so, they kind of put it on me, the family firearm nut, so to speak, to help them acclimate to handgun use. And so we brought out a plethora of pistols and did a bunch of shooting and had a good time. So, but I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot from that experience because that's the first time I've ever taken like a bunch of people out to just, do some shooting. So,
did it feel like going to work, where you're teaching a whole classroom full of...
Like part of me wanted to like shoot and have fun because we got this sweet backboard put up on the property that we were shooting on. And then part of me was like, God, I want to test this backboard. But everybody else got to take their rounds and stuff. It did because it's like you want to make sure everybody's being safe. Yep. You want to make sure everybody has a chance to shoot every gun. You want to make sure that first shot that they don't panic and drop it or throw it or freak out. Because for some of the people that were shooting, it was their first time ever shooting a handgun. And so it was, yeah, I almost kind of felt like an instructor. It was a lot of responsibility. But, being an educator, I mean, I understood, I had that mindset of kind of going through the routine of making sure that everybody was safe and comfortable and you can answer all their questions and stuff. So it was worth it. I mean, we spent the better part of the day there, going over everything and talking about the different calibers and shooting at different distances and, trying to get everybody comfortable with holding the pistols and stuff. And yeah, it was definitely work. I will say that. So, hey, we got Defense Dad this morning. How you doing, man?
I'm awake.
Dude, Squib is doing this podcast without coffee. I mean, I've already had 1 cup, and I'm already working on a little sugar-free energy drink this morning. So, oh, man. I thought you weren't a morning person. I thought you sleep in on the weekends. I feel awful taking your guys away from your much-deserved rest.
I'm normally not, but I woke up.
All right. I mean, you kind of go to work early sometimes anyway, don't you? 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
No, our store doesn't open until 10 or 11.
Oh my God. Banker's hours. Dude, that is so nice. I'm just kind of hardwired to wake up early. So let's get back to the crowd and see what's going on. So good morning, everybody. This is Caliber Corner episode number 156. And today we're talking about handgun recommendations for the new gun owner. So not only are we going to maybe throw out some specific models, so if you're somebody in the market for your first handgun or another handgun, maybe jot the list down of what we cover, but then also talk about some basic advice for picking out that first handgun. And there's some common pitfalls I think people run into, especially nowadays with the internet when it comes to researching your firearms, things that you should know and things that you want to watch out for. Because I've made mistakes in purchasing handguns that I was not happy with. After I took them to the range, it wasn't what I thought they were going to be, and they weren't as enjoyable to shoot, or they just weren't as accurate, or they weren't as easy to carry as I thought they were going to be. So there's some things that you can do so you don't make financial mistakes, especially these days where you're not going to get the prices we were getting 5 months ago. Nowadays, you can expect to pay $50 to $100 more on a lot of the handguns. Now they're getting closer to their MSRP, whereas before they were, it was kind of a battle of who can throw the cheapest guns out there at the market and make you a customer. I mean, it really was like that. For a while, it was bottoming out. There were prices on handguns that were just, $150 below what they normally sell for. So, availability, price, there's a lot of money on the line. And we want to help you guys make the best selection that you possibly can. So real quick, let's see who's out there on the YouTube side. Again, this is episode 156. We've got Fienddog27 out there. We got Squibload in the house. We got Fluffy 10mm Jeep Guy. Let's see here. What else we got here? Tacos and French Fries is in the house. Net Flutter's out there. I can't believe how many people are awake. You guys must be East Coasters, those of you that had that extra hour of sleep, huh? Jucifer's out there right now. Kingpin is in the house. Kingpin's in the house. That's awesome. He said he'll be in there soon. Tennessee Gun Guy's out there for Scott P938. Woo! And Jimmy Kimmel's out there too. So we got some Jimmy Kimmel going on. And just a little shout out to Mel the Nut. Mel was the winner of the October Patreon drawing. And so if you guys want to check out my channel, it's Travis P11. And if you are a patron of mine, the buy-in, I guess you could say, is $1 a month, and that gets you early access to my videos. It gets you in the monthly drawings. There's a few other exclusives that we throw out there for patrons. And the funds from that go directly into guns and ammo. I've purchased a lot of guns this year, and it's been really nice to have the Patreon help me out with that. I mean, otherwise I put my own money into the purchases that we make for this channel. So you can check that out if you want to. But real quick, let's let the panel introduce themselves. And so Squib, since you showed up first, and I mean, honestly didn't know if I was going to have anybody this morning show up on the panel, but Squib, you want to give us an introduction and talk about yourself a little bit?
Well, yeah. Yesterday I was shooting some videos for my channel, and one of them was a coffee review, thanks to you.
Oh, okay.
And well, I mean, I got into the coffee reviews thanks to you.
Well,
and that's actually kind of helped me semi-refine my palate. So at first, I wasn't really big on these, but I just kept doing them, and I think I've gotten a little bit better at the reviews. Not as good as maybe I could be, but my palate. So I went into the folder where I keep all my coffee reviews, and I found two of them that I didn't recognize. And I opened them up and I looked at them, and I filmed them last year, and I never published them. I never loaded them in the studio or anything. So I'm watching them, and you could definitely tell these are some of my earlier coffee reviews.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I put them in the studio, and so I'm going to release two from this time last year.
Nice. Okay.
So I'm using different water. And then one of them I'm talking about. Yeah, Travis says I got to rinse the filter. I think he's playing a joke on me. I tell you what,
brew your pot of coffee without coffee and watch the sediment that goes into the water from that filter. It washes all that outside coating off and all those fibers right into the pot. And I think do you think it makes a difference or not? Do you think it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors? What's your take on it? Because I mean, there's a reason why baristas and shops use purified water. A big part of it is so the mineral deposits don't ruin their equipment.
I mean, I was using distilled water originally.
Yeah. No, you're not even supposed to drink that, really. I mean, it's.
Oh, no. I drank that for 6 months living on a ship. That's some of the best tasting water I've ever had.
I thought it's like nutritionally deficient water, though. I thought there were some elements.
It's water with nothing in it.
I know, but I don't know. I always thought that you weren't supposed to because there's just missing something. I don't know. I mean, it tastes
water. So
yeah.
I switched to purified because of you, and then I, rinse the filters because of you and stuff like that. And then you're telling me don't put so much coffee in the urn or in the basket. I mean, in the basket and
you
stuff like that.
measure out 1 tablespoon for every cup. Essentially, is what you're supposed to do. So yeah.
So I've been improving, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So these are 2 earlier videos that'll be out there, and it might seem a bit out of sequence because it is. So it's kind of fun doing stuff like that, going back and looking at stuff. So
and you're like Travis P11 says, this is the best coffee ever. It tastes like coffee.
yes.
I don't notice anything unique about it. I mean, but I think part of it is you got to develop your palate, but then it also takes more. And also as the temperature drops on the coffee, the more the flavor profile comes out because that heat is masking a lot of the taste. So like I'll notice you'll go back and have 2 or 3 cups or you'll let it sit out for a while.
Yeah.
And then you take a sip and you're like, oh, there's a lot of character that comes out of it. And that's
Yeah.
true. I've noticed that with beers. I've noticed that with wine.
Yep.
You let it sit out and breathe for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more flavor that just seems to come out of it as the temperature either rises or drops on that beverage. Yeah.
So I've got like 2 weeks worth of videos in my studio. So I don't know when they'll be coming out, when I'll publish them. But the thing is, if you watch some of my videos, you might see some stuff out of sequence, or you might see some stuff that doesn't make sense if you haven't watched 10 or 12 other videos.
Hey.
So in I guess in the whole process of doing things like this, I'm having fun. So I do appreciate the inspiration, the advice, all the other things that come along with us maybe helping each other with videos or sharing ideas or experience or giving tips or pointers or whatnot. Even though some of the videos I make are not very exciting for other people, it's kind of fun for me to make them.
Oh, all right, man. Sorry about that. We're having a little technical issue here. No, but Squib, I will say though, it's been fun watching your channel develop as time has gone on, and just watching how how much fun it's been. And again, I apologize if I keep sending you stuff. I don't want you to feel like you got to make videos on it.
No, I put that in one of the video. I filmed the intro for a video yesterday, and I said something like me and Travis keep sending each other stuff, and it's kind of like
YouTube peer pressure is what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
you gotta go make a video on this. You gotta go. I mean, Defense-9 are kind of getting into that phase right now too, and it's even worse. He's in the same town as me, so it's like, go take this gun out, go shoot this gun, go make a video on it. Or you take this gun. Oh, fine, I'll take this gun. Oh man. So hey, we got who else is with us? Single Shot's with us. Single Shot, what's going on this morning, brother? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just getting up and getting around. How y'all doing this morning?
Good. So there was a comment on the YouTube side. People said extra hour of sleep. Well, if you're an East Coaster, it's 8 o'clock your time. It's 7 o'clock my time. So I guess maybe it kind of feels like you got an extra hour of sleep. I don't know. But that's what I was saying. If I was to go east, I would get an extra hour of sleep. If I was to go west, I would lose a couple hours of sleep. So yeah, exactly. So how's your morning going? Are you on the road already?
Oh yeah, I've been on the road now for you realize
it's a week. It's Sunday, right? It's Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say good morning to Defense Dad and Squib. How you guys doing this morning?
Morning.
We're doing good. Squibby's got a surprising amount of energy, even though he's doing it,
Oh, Travis,
so
whatever.
Squib, if you got to get mobile and you got to go on the road and grab that cup of coffee, that's fine. Make sure you live stream the whole podcast.
No. She said I can't go without her, and she's sound asleep with the dog.
Oh, okay. I wish my dog was sound asleep. He keeps barking. So, oh man. All right. So, let's see here. Defense Dad, real quick. You got a great YouTube channel out there. Can you give us a little tease of what's coming up on the channel? You got any ideas for any new videos popping up?
Oh, got some ideas right now. I was kind of playing around with the new software, new editing software, and I've been doing some kind of silly stuff lately, but gonna get back out to the range and do some shooting videos. Hopefully my Taurus gets back from warranty work so I can do a follow-up on that one. But other than that, just been kind of having fun with it.
Make sure you do a video on the whole process of the return to Taurus, because there's people that are curious, what's going to happen if you return the firearms. There's a lot of people that are looking for that hate that comes out of those Taurus videos. They just feed off that because they're not Taurus fans. But if you could share your experience, I mean, I did a video on, I made a phone call to Sky to see what the customer service was like and how cooperative they were. And they were great. I mean, they were great about getting my gun fixed. They knew there was a problem and they rushed the parts out to me. I had them within like 3 days. I mean, it was crazy. And that came from Florida, and I'm in the central part of the U.S. And so it'd be kind of neat to see what that time frame is right now for returning a Taurus pistol and what exactly it takes to get it back.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Just a quick reminder. Sponsor for Caliber Corner is SS Pawn, located in Lexington, Nebraska. Make sure you guys take the exit at Interstate 80, stop in there and say hello to Stan. SS Pawn's been a long-time supporter of the channel, and many of the firearms that you see in my range tests and also my cleaning videos were part of Stan's private collection. And the nice thing about borrowing the pistols from somebody or the rifles is that, I'm under no pressure to give the gun a good review because I have no personal stake in it. And so that's been a really good thing. And then also, as you know, I do test Bear Creek Arsenal uppers on the channel, and I've showed the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've seen them malfunction. You've seen them function well. We take them apart and look at them and talk about them. So, on this channel, you get a mix of information, and that kind of has a bit of an idea that I want to tie in with these handgun recommendations for the new firearm owner. So let's just get this out right now, guys. This is a great topic. What are some of the mistakes that a person makes when they buy that first handgun? What do you think, or what was some of the screw-ups that you guys have made before when you bought your first gun, or maybe you bought one that you regretted, maybe you haven't, but what are things that you've seen people do that have been not so positive for that person buying the gun? What do you guys think?
Oversized and over caliber, number 1 and 2.
I mean, like that first gun they go get is that compact 454 conceal, and they realize that maybe that wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
That guy in the movie made it look, The Rock made it look awesome in that movie, but when you try to carry that thing or you try to shoot it, it's a bit more. Actually, the 454 conceal, the Ruger Alaskan that I shot, I didn't think the recoil was really that bad. The gun weighs like 5 pounds, so possibly picking a caliber, maybe that's a bit more than not what they need, but maybe it results in maybe a larger handgun or an unpleasant shooting experience. My first handgun that I ever bought, my dad's friend won it in a raffle. It was like a Pheasants Forever raffle. It was one of those organizations. It was a Gen 2 Glock G20 10 millimeter. He got it. Now he's an old Milsurp collector. He's not a polymer gun guy at all. He's 1911s and Brownings and stuff. And so he sold it to me. I think I bought it for like $300, brand new Gen 2. And that was my first handgun. And man, I'll tell you what, that thing would sting to shoot it. It was expensive to get the ammo. This was before the internet, before you could even buy ammo off the internet. So ammo was very expensive for it. When I bought it locally, it was like $25, $30 for a box of 50. And that was just ball ammo. It might have been even more than that. And so that made it, it was not fun to shoot. And it was expensive to go to the range. I didn't have any land. So, I bought into this whole platform and I realized it was not the experience I thought it was going to be. I kept it around. It was basically a bedside gun. I would travel with it, but it was not enjoyable to shoot, and it was expensive. And I was a college student at the time, so I didn't have a lot of extra funds. So possibly buying into a caliber larger than maybe what they might want to start off with. Okay, but every gun has its own kind of recoil experience. You could shoot a 40 or 45 that's smooth as butter, or you might shoot a 380 that stings your hand every time you pull the trigger. I've experienced all that. But I do agree with you, Single Shot. I do think that's one. Squib, what do you think? What are some of the screw-ups that a first-time handgun buyer makes?
They base their purchase off of money. And I don't necessarily mean, okay, so you can go one way with this. I'm going to buy the cheapest gun that uses the cheapest ammo.
Yeah.
And then you get it and you're not happy with it. Scott. And or
we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Or you have the person that goes out and buys a very expensive handgun that uses a maybe more difficult to find or more expensive ammunition. They didn't really check the price on the ammo, or they thought, well, if I spend a lot of money, I'm going to get a better quality product. Then one time they go out to the range and they shoot somebody's mid-range price gun and say, this gun is 100 times better than mine. Why did I waste? I could have bought 2 or 3 of these for. Mm-hmm. So, you were talking in the pre-chat, and the simple answer is go rent a bunch of guns or try a bunch of guns before you get them. Mm-hmm. That's not always an option for people, but that is the short answer.
It wasn't for me. My closest indoor range where I could rent firearms, if I'm not mistaken, was Lincoln. It would have been a 350-mile round trip, and I'd have to burn a day, which would be worth it in hindsight. Maybe I should have done that. Now, I didn't even have that option back in the day. There were really 20 years ago, there were even less options for gun rentals versus now.
Yep.
So, I agree completely. Defense Stat, what do you think? What are some of the screw-ups that maybe you have made or that you see people make when they buy that first handgun?
As far as what I see people making is, like, for example, my coworker, she did what a lot of, I'm not sounding sexist, but a lot of women do. her first gun, she bought the smallest thing she could possibly get
Mhm.
because it was easy to conceal, which
Yep.
it's a great gun. It's a Sig P938, but she really had a hard time controlling it. And I've shot that gun. That's got a lot of snap for a small gun, which is kind of surprising because it's got a heavy frame for a small gun too.
Well, you got a limited amount of real estate going
Right.
on. You can't just get that nice full two-handed grip on it where every finger's got some sort of covering on the grip itself. And that somebody had just mentioned that on the YouTube side. Getting a gun that's you want the smallest, easiest to conceal thing. You don't even handle it in the store. You just order it because this is the greatest compact carry that everybody's talking about online. And then you get it and you realize, man, where's my pinky go? How am I supposed to shoot this thing if I can't even? And nobody makes a mag extension for it. This thing is awful,
Yeah.
And I've had that experience too. I think the Taurus 738 was one of those guns where I noticed that. So yeah, I mean I agree. I mean, and did your coworker get a chance to shoot this before she bought it? Or I mean, she spent a decent chunk of change on this thing, right?
She did get a chance to shoot it. She shot the P238 version of it, which
Okay.
has less recoil because it's 380. But I mean, she got to the point where she could keep it all in a center line. But I got to tell you, in a silhouette, it ranged from the head all the way down to the silhouette's junk. That was the most control she could get to it. But she still has that. She does carry. She's got a little better with it. But she also did go and get a PPQ full size for home defense that she could control a lot better. I found that for her.
Just a little comment on the price. When we did the shooting with the gals last weekend, when my family and their friends all came over and we did a whole bunch of shooting, I didn't mention anything about price at all until it was all done. Because there was going to be some people in that group that would buy it strictly off the price. I wanted them to shoot it and find out which one was the most comfortable. We kind of ranked them 1, 2, and 3. And, luckily, they kind of fell into kind of an ascending price point or descending price point. And so I didn't mention price until after we were done. But somebody said, well, is this an expensive gun? I said, well, it kind of determines what your definition of expensive is. Because to me, $550 is not really, it's not the end of the world, but for a lot of people, that's a lot of money. But also didn't want them thinking that they got to just get themselves in on the cheapest thing that's going to function, because it might not be the most ergonomic, the most enjoyable to shoot. It might be in a caliber maybe that's a little anemic compared to the next step up.
Well, as far as price goes, just to jump into, like, one of the mistakes I made, and unfortunately it was just the necessity, I was still recovering from the financial burden of a divorce, so I didn't have a lot of money to spend for my first handgun. So that $350 I spent altogether I was scraping for that. And, I actually liked that gun. I ended up trading it. There's other reasons, but not everybody can afford the $550. And I was just trying to get out from under lawyer's fees, but I knew I needed something. So
yeah.
Every situation's different.
Well, and you can get lucky and get that gun that just fits your hand great. You went strictly off of reviews and YouTube videos, which is the worst thing you can do, by the way. Even though I make gun reviews, you should never go just buy a gun after watching one of my videos without at least handling it in the gun store first if possible. Or if you know somebody that has one, at least trying to get a chance to shoot it. Because many of the first guns that I purchased were strictly off YouTube videos, and they either had quality control problems, or they weren't as comfortable as I thought they were going to be, or they just, they had issues down the road. So, I mean, there's a lot of, kind of pushing for brands that happen on YouTube, and you might watch a video and say, well, this guy says this is the greatest thing, since sliced bread. And then you buy it and it turns out that it won't run after 1,000 rounds, So real quick, let's let Kingpin introduce himself. Kingpin, what's going on this morning? How's it going, brother?
How you doing? Not too bad, man. Hopefully my audio comes in okay. I'm driving.
Yeah.
So if I start getting choppy, just hit me with the mute button.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So real quick, while we got you here, what are maybe some of the mistakes that you made when you bought some of your first handguns, if you did, or what are some of the mistakes that maybe your friends have made when they purchased their first guns? What's something that everybody seems to screw up on when they buy their first gun?
Well, I'd have to, not trying to brag, but in my opinion, I haven't made any mistakes buying any guns yet. But my situation, I got really, really lucky. When I got into buying guns and collecting guns and really getting into the gun culture, if you will, I found gun channels. I found you guys. And at the range, everybody there just kind of scooped me up and helped me out. So I got a ton of experience surrounding me right away. So a lot of my friends and you guys and the people at the range and stuff like that helped me not make big mistakes. One that comes to mind is I was dead set on buying the Burst of Thunder, and Midnight Range was like, "Hey bud, let me tell you a few things." And he didn't down the gun. He just told me some of the stuff about the gun, which helped me decide that that's not the gun I wanted. So thankfully, with the people that I've been surrounded by, I've been able to avoid, in my opinion, any mistakes buying a gun.
No, that's good, and that's kind of where I want to start with this. So, if you are in the market for your first handgun, if you've got a friend or family member that has firearms, or maybe has access to a range, or that they love to go shooting, or even if they're just a hunter, okay, approach that person and say, hey, I'm in the market for a handgun and I don't know where to start. That's basically what got the ball rolling with my own family. A few family members approached me and said, we want to get our first gun. What do you want us to get? You've got a YouTube channel, you test a lot of guns. What do you recommend? And I'm like, well, first of all, let's get everybody together so we can have an opportunity to do so. And luckily we have a place where we can shoot. So, I mean, if you know somebody that has firearms, or maybe you've got a coworker that, they've got their carry permit, or it's come up in a conversation, I'd like to think that the majority of people that are gun owners are willing to at least share some advice, some information, maybe want to meet you at the range, or maybe go find a nice place to go shoot outdoors, and we'll help bring you in. That's how we are. Because for me, if I can change your mind about the importance of self-defense, and then hopefully can move into things like obviously the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms, I would like to help you make that transition. And I've done that for several family members and several friends I've got numerous friends in the last year that have purchased their first firearm because they're scared. Because they're kind of worried about some civil unrest, because they've got families. There's a lot of desperate people out there that are doing a lot of bad things right now, and they want to protect their families. And they have come to realize that it's not as scary as the media makes it out to be a gun owner, right? The gun's not going to just go off on its own. So I think that's a big part. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is that a good approach for somebody who's in the market for a first firearm?
You bring up something interesting. Okay, It's about they finally. All right, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. The civil unrest. Okay, so
yeah, that was it. That was a huge one this summer. Yeah,
A friend, a family member, a coworker comes up to me and says, "I need a gun to protect my family because I'm concerned about civil unrest." Okay, my first question is, are you going to carry it? If they're not carrying it, AR-15 every day. AR-15 every day. If it's staying in your house and just going to the house, the range, protect your home with an AR-15. Unless you're in an apartment, then maybe a handgun or a shotgun. But if you've got a home or a house, maybe not necessarily acres and acres, but a little bit of land, you're not like stacked in there one on top of the other, like the outro to All in the Family. Okay, then an AR-15, because it's a great gun to learn on. It's a great beginner's gun. Everybody in your family can use it. You can adjust it for this, adjust it for that. Now, if they go, well, no, I want to get my concealed carry permit, or if you're in the state with Constitution, oh boy, now we open up a whole big can of worms. Because if you've never shot a gun before and you start off with a subcompact gun that you're going to carry, it may not be a good range gun. It may not feel comfortable in your hand. What, you mean I got to buy two? See, that's where I think I would lose them. I'd say get a full size this to learn on, to take to the range. Get a small version of this to carry every day. And where's the disconnect? How do I, you know what I mean? If you've got the tiniest gun and you start off with that may not.
Well, I think it's also important to explain to them, if they're looking for a carry gun and they only want to buy one, but they want something they can use for home or the range, or they want something that they can take in their vehicle. They want that concealability, but they also want that comfort of use at the range. There are a lot of options out there now. There's a lot of good kind of mid-size or maybe slightly larger than compact models and then you can also get into the idea of holster choice, clothing choice for conceal. I don't recommend it, but there's always the off-body carry options, say purse carry and things like that. I think that if you give enough options out there, or explain some of the other elements to it, you can make it work for that person. But yeah, you got a good point though. It's like because this what we did. A few of the family members like, well, I maybe want one of those, because the Taurus Tx22 was very popular last weekend with my family when we were shooting it, because it's big, you can get a good grip on it, it's low recoil. But I'm like, don't get me wrong, you can defend yourself with 22 long rifle, but I said, let's try to get you to shoot a 9mm that you're going to be comfortable with, where the recoil doesn't turn you away from shooting a handgun. And so I think that's a huge part of it. But yeah, I mean, it's the money part is a big part of it initially. But you got a very good point about the AR-15. I'm looking at your thumbnail right now, Squib. And if I was a protester and I saw that thumbnail standing out front of the house, I saw that person out front of the house, I'm probably not going to want to go in that house and make what's yours mine. I mean, let's just say that right now.
You've got to complement it with a tactical salmon collared shirt and
absolutely.
khakis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you got that kind of that stoic look on your face, like, come and get it, you know?
Yeah.
And the problem, the only bad thing about the AR-15 right now, again, if the person is dead set on cost for that first firearm,
yeah, they're pricey.
Right now, I mean, I'm looking at buying an upper myself. Okay, lower $215, $220 for a decent lower. Okay, and then for an upper, minimum $300. Magazine ammo sights, you're looking at $600 to $700 to buy in on a complete platform ready to go. So that's part of it too. But if I'm, you know, if they say, hey, if you're only going to get one gun, you want the perfect, you know, all around firearm. You want something you could travel with. You want something that you could defend your home with. You want something that's gonna have the takedown power. Consider going with an AR-15, whether it's a pistol size platform or a full size platform. I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, that's.
Well, even then, a fully assembled one, you know, is $1,200. I mean, these are AWB prices right now. And what you paid for your lower, that's about what you'd pay for a pre-ban lower back during AWB. So we've seen these prices before, and they're enough to make somebody go, dang, you know. But then you run into the factor of having trouble finding ammo, which it's coming back. So it'll be there. But I do like what you were saying about, you know, kind of say, all right, here's the 22 to train on, but here's the 9mm to carry. It's just that, you know, asking them for two guns right off out of the gate might push them away.
Well, and here's the thing, and I did explain that the Tx22 that we bought was only $249. So I said, you know, for $249, you can buy into a gun that you can train with all day. 22 LR ammunition is relatively inexpensive. You can get some long training sessions with it. It's not the same as your carry gun, and you need to practice with your carry gun or your home defense gun, but if 9mm acquisition is an issue, if 9mm prices are prohibitive, then consider, you know, a few people are going to get themselves a Tx22, but I said, let's get you into a 9mm that you can be comfortable with at a minimum and then go from there. And so you're right. The first question you got to ask yourself is what do I want it for? Do I want an all-around pistol? Do I just want something I can keep as a bedside gun? 2, do I need something that I'm going to be able to conceal carry or have to conceal carry or want to conceal carry down the road? 3, what's my financial situation? You know, do I have the money to buy a carry weapon and maybe a full-size handgun for home defense or range use? So there's a lot of questions you got to ask yourself. And so that's why, again, we recommend you start off approaching a family member or friend that does have firearms or has access to firearms. That person, I would think, would take you in and help you make that, at least get you to the range and give you a chance to shoot. Okay. Now, the second thing you could do is go to the range, ask for recommendations from the people that work in the firearm store or the range. You know, rent a few different sizes of handguns, see what you're most comfortable with, try a variety of brands. And I mean, and we will throw some specific recommendations out here in a little bit, but that, I think, just getting a chance to practice with it and just see what the feel is like, I think you're going to feel like you're getting the most out of your money, because you may be dropping $400, $500, $600, $700. You know, I think that's something important to consider.
Well, the thing with price, and I know we like to give Squibby a hard time about it, but I really agree with him. There's really no such thing as a gun you can't afford. If you've got a job and you've got, you know, even an ounce of responsibility in your budget, you can afford any gun that's out there. Now, I understand, you know, the Rona came and the riots came, so panic buying became an actual thing. But don't buy a cheap gun because you need a gun. If you're the person out there that's desperate and needs a gun immediately is super rare. Those people go out and buy whatever gun you can get. Buy the $100 high point if that's what you have to do. But move in with your mom for a little while. Have a cousin move in. Tell your neighbors what's going on, something like that, and save some money. If the $100 high point's the only thing you can afford, but you don't have the zombies beating down your door every night, wait 3 or 4 weeks and buy a better gun. You know, the rush out and buy a gun thing is nonsense. I mean, there's so many different options. Unless you're just completely alone, you have no friends, you have no family, and you're in a desperate situation, You know, there's other ways about waiting and keeping yourself safe while you afford a better gun. And then the other thing I would mention is for us, you know, one of the things that I get frustrated in these conversations
Mhm.
is, you know, somebody will pop into the chat and say, "Hey, what kind of rifle should I buy?" And then inevitably, everybody starts
Yeah.
hitting them with 10 billion questions about what
Yeah.
color camo hat do you wear? What kind of socks are you wearing? What day is it?
How many
Just
fingers
ask,
do you have?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really, what kind of gun could somebody get can be broken down into a really simple discussion. And
Mhm.
then once they understand the simple discussion, we can start going into the detail about, are you going to carry? Is it Wednesday? What kind of temperature is it? What's your elevation? And all that other kind of stuff that we
And it's
always
crazy
just
because
rush
it
right
does.
into.
Are you going to wear an undershirt? Because the grip could rub against you. I mean, there's so many, and so that's why I think that it really comes down to you, the perspective, the potential new handgun owner, just getting out to the range and just paying the money and getting the rental guns and trying a variety. And then it does really come down to personal preference in the end. But again, it depends on your access to a range, your financial situation. So there are some options for you. Okay. And when we give our recommendations for maybe great first handguns, these are just based off of our experiences. And so if you buy off of our recommendations and they don't work out for you, I apologize. But I mean, we can at least throw some options out there for you to start off with. But I mean, there might be something that we don't mention on this morning's episode. And somebody would say, well, what about this gun? Or what about that gun? I love it. Okay, well, I mean, we can always throw that in the mix too. So I'm only going to give recommendations for what I've actually tested and what I've actually fired. But I've also made a lot of mistakes. And one of the first mistakes that I made with one of my earliest carry guns was just strictly going just off of YouTube videos. And here I am, I'm somebody who does gun reviews, but I always say, you should try this before you buy it, right? Me, it's just kind of an initial shots. My take on it. Is it comfortable to shoot? How's the accuracy of it? What are the ergonomics like? It's almost like a test drive. Like we're doing a test drive, and I'm recommending a car to you based off of that initial drive. I can't comment on long-term durability. I can't comment on like overall easy concealability because everybody's got a different body size, and so yeah, that's one of the first mistakes people make is just strictly going off of a YouTube video. I've done that, and I've been burned on probably. I want to say burned on one of the three guns. One of my first carry guns was the Fns-9 Compact. I watched a Yankee Marshall video 6 years ago, and he was talking about how this gun's going to be a bit of a game changer. And I'm not blaming Yankee at all. I mean, it's an FN. It's a great brand. It was a compact. What I really liked about it and what sold me on it were the three different magazines you got with it. You got a flush fit mag, you got the pinky extension mag, and then you got like another extended mag that bumped up the capacity like 15 or 17. And I thought, man, this thing is like the perfect all around gun. Well, then I get it, and I realized that the trigger was lighter than I enjoyed. I did a lot of accidental double taps. When you're at the range, it's got such a light reset on it. It was chunkier than I realized it was going to be. I never held it in the store before I bought it. And so, I mean, it was, and I had trouble finding holsters for it because it was a brand new gun. That Clarence Holsters was the only company that made a holster for it. So I didn't do the best research I could have, just simply buying it off a review. Okay, the second gun that I bought based off of just YouTube videos was the Sig P938, which 3 or 4 of the big YouTube channels were saying that this is the greatest thing. It's an inexpensive carry gun. It's durable. They're throwing it out of barns. They're dragging it down the road. It's not malfunctioning. And I'll admit, I carried it for 3 years, and then I did wear the gun out within about 1,000 rounds. And, Sky was fine to fix it. But, I mean, when it started having issues, it kind of freaked me out because it was my carry gun, and here it's not functioning, right? And so that's a big part of it, too. And then what was the third one? Oh, and it's sitting behind me right here, the SD9 VE. I'm watching videos on that, and these are guns that pop up in rotation. When you're looking for low-cost firearms, these are some of the first, videos you're going to see. The problem with the SD9 VE that I didn't see in any of the YouTube videos was trouble going into battery and how crappy the factory recoil guide rod is and the spring. It's a very flimsy plastic. I had, return to battery issues. I had FTE issues. And I know Roll Call 219 had recently, moved his out of his collection because it wasn't functioning the way that he wanted. It wouldn't stay open upon empty. And so I discovered a lot of little things about this pistol. Now you're probably saying, well, why is it sitting there right now? Why is that a bedside gun? Well, I was able to resolve the magazine issue by simply stretching out the springs in the magazine so that the gun would lock open on empty. And then I also had to replace the stainless steel guide rod with an aftermarket unit that ran me about $24. And so that now I finally got the gun to run the way I want it to, but that's not the kind of situation I want a new gun owner to run into, because they might not know what's going on. They might end up having to return it, and then it has some problems, and then they're without a gun. And so I can't recommend like an SD9 VE or CPX2 as a first gun. CPX2, I suppose if you're not going to put a lot of rounds on it, it will run, but there are some initial problems you can run into. So I'm just kind of getting those two out there right now. Guys, what do you think? Have you ever just been sold on a YouTube video and it ended up not being the experience you thought it was? And if it's something I made, if it was one of my videos, I apologize. What do you guys think?
I'm too arrogant to trust another YouTuber when I can just make those
Fair
decisions
enough.
on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my attitude.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I mean, I like to watch it just to learn about the features, just to kind of see what the overall, kind of the overall take is on it, just to see it more up close in the video, to see him take it apart and see what the process is going to be like. I don't know, Defense Dad or Single Shot or Kingpin, you guys ever been just sold on a YouTube video and maybe it turned out okay for you? I don't know.
Yeah, I have. And luckily as it was, it worked out well for me, because I did have the chance to actually go test it, try it. And I'm a recoil junkie.
Okay.
Put that out.
No, see, that's rare, because a lot of
And,
people are turned off by recoil when they're shooting their firearms,
Right. And when I was training, the ladies on self-defense, I had a few pistols laying there on the table, and they'd always go to the smallest one. Well, that's not a good idea when you're first starting out, because you don't know how it's going to react with you, how you're going to react with it. And, it's always a good idea to start out with something like that was mentioned earlier, that's something that fits you. And that is a big thing as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be something you're comfortable with to start off with. Price-wise, yeah, you've got a lot of considerations there. That's why you go through so many different ones to find out which one you do care for. Try them before you buy them. That's a big thing, and that's a good mention there.
What I discovered, since it was all ladies that was shooting with us last weekend, and I'm not trying to be biased here, but I thought they might like the more compact pistols better, something with a thinner grip, a smaller grip to get a better purchase on. And no, the mid-size and full-size guns were the most popular because they feel like they had a more controlled grip on the firearm. So but then the idea of, well, how do I conceal this thing? We're trying to find kind of a nice, kind of in between model size-wise that they could first carry or personal carry, conceal carry, but then also have the ability to shoot well. I mean, even if you got a gun that's slightly uncomfortable when you shoot it, if you can shoot it well, I think you need to look past the discomfort you might experience in the grip or whatnot.
Get used to it. You
will. The more you shoot, like the CPX2, and again, I'm not trying to rag on it, but it does have a lot of shock and recoil that it transmits through your hand when you shoot it, and you might be a little sore after doing 50, 100 rounds with it, but as I shot hundreds and hundreds of rounds through it, I got much more comfortable with it, and I shot it fine. But a lot of people say, man, the thing's got a horrible trigger. The recoil hurts my hand. After 900 rounds, 1,000 rounds, I had no more issues, except the gun wasn't functional at that point. So, I mean, you can get used to the gun with enough practice. But it really does come down to, to personal preference. Budget can have an influence on it. Your take on it. Now, the one thing I want to talk about real quick too here, it seems like everybody that I know as of recent times that had purchased their first gun, they were so set. Do I need a safety? Should I get one with a mechanical safety? That does come down to personal preference. My recommendation for whether or not your carry gun should have a safety is a strong no. And the only reason why is in that moment when you need to use that firearm, are you going to remember to turn the safety off? Have you trained enough to just kind of, your behavior has got you conditioned to flick off that safety as you draw? Also, the problem I have with a mechanical safety, I don't know if it's ever caused an issue for any gun ever, but to me, it's another component that could fail and cause a firearm to not fire when you need it to. So I've never been a big fan of mechanical safeties, but I'm not going to say you should or you shouldn't. If you think you need that, that is totally fine. Now, that came up in the conversation last weekend when we were shooting with the family, but doesn't it need a safety? And I said, look, if the gun is in the holster or if the gun is in your gun safe or it's in your bedside vault, whatever you do, it's not going to go off on its own. I mean, a gun could. Okay, but let's just take it for face value. I've never had a firearm with a round that's been chambered in it just go off on its own. Not that it couldn't fail, not that it couldn't have a problem, but I said, I said, you know, I've never had that problem. When it's in the holster, it's not going to go off. It's not going to go off until you pull the trigger. And then it's like,
Right.
well, you know, I mean, and then, you know, a few times, a few people tried to, you know, they do that first trigger shot and they realize the safety was, the safety was on, you know, like they chamber it, put the safety on. We talk for a few minutes. Okay, take your first shots. And it's like, it's not firing. Yeah, your safety. Oh yeah, the safety. Cause like we were playing with the Tx22 and the Tx22 has the ambidextrous safety on it. And we mainly had that so people could be, you know, comfortable with it and so on. By the way, Squib there's getting his morning coffee. So I was kind of joking, but he is doing his live stream of his morning Speedway cup of coffee, which so wish we had that around here. But anyway, he's getting his creamer ready to go. But yeah,
real quick,
yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah.
going back to what you were talking about with the before we move too far away from it, the review videos.
Mhm.
You know, once you've been burned by a review video, if you make videos, that should give you 100% incentive to be honest and upfront about your review videos.
Yeah.
And if you go and watch a video on one gun and the guy's screaming or the girl's screaming, "This is the best gun that's ever been made. You've got to go buy 5 of them now," you're probably going to get a crappy gun because that person's a shill. So definitely, if you're making videos, I encourage you to just be flat and honest. Screw the money and just be real about your review.
Yeah. I usually I'll do like an
You really
initial
have
range
to be.
test, and then I'll do a tabletop review, and I'll talk about the pros and cons. You know, did I like the trigger? And then I'll actually show my shooting footage. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I'm one of the few people on YouTube that actually shoots paper targets. Anybody can hit a 6-inch gong at 7 yards, okay? But I try to do paper targets to show this is how well the average Joe is going to shoot this thing out of the box. I at least do it so you have an idea, and also it tells me if there's some sort of a defect with the firearm. Maybe the sights need to be adjusted and whatnot, but I do try to do those paper targets to give that. And you'll see them when I'm on the range. You'll see it. I'll put a little caption if the gun malfunctioned or jammed, or if it didn't cycle properly. And I mean, part of it too is the majority of the guns that I test are loaned to me or they're my own. Other than the Bear Creek rifles that I test, they're uppers. So, I mean, I've got no personal stake in it whatsoever. Whether the gun runs or fails, I still get the views on the video. So to me, it doesn't matter if the gun runs well or not. You're going to see it as it happens. Single shot, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother. Yeah.
That's okay. No problem. I want to give a good example of something that happens to us deer hunters all the time. Well, not all the time, because we usually eventually get over it. It's called buck fever. So the same thing can happen in a stressful situation that you have arise in front of you. You know, you've got your mind that's racing 1,000 miles a minute, and you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. You've got to assess the situation, how you're going to handle it. And we can get into that situation, even myself, with the experience that I have, national competition, etc. You know, you get yourself into that situation, and then it's the same thing that you mentioned. You go to jerk that trigger, that's the number one mistake, and you realize the safety's on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that safety on can give you two things. It can tell you, we're in trouble here. But it also can tell you where those sights go if you're concentrating and you jerk that trigger.
Yeah. You're like, they nosedive.
You're going to be 4 miles off target.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, well, it's a good thing the safety was on, because that would have been a horrible shot. You know, sometimes you stop and think, whew, I'm glad I left that on. You know, it's like, oh, that looked great on camera. I'm like, oh, safety's on. You know, I leave that in there too in my videos. I try to, because it's like, well, I screwed that up, and it's a good learning experience for me.
Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah.
The one match that we used to shoot when I was shooting competition down in Little Rock, Arkansas, called the National Championships, was what was called the George S. Patton match.
Okay.
We had 2 miles to run, and first thing in the morning in Arkansas heat, that can be a stressful situation to start with.
Yeah.
And we always had a little competition, you know, whoever's team did the best out of the bunch that, you know, the group that we was in, which was the Northeast Regional group that I belonged to. And we would run 2 miles in 21 minutes in full gear, right down to the holster and everything else, the pistol and the magazines was left on the shooting line. If you didn't make it in that 21 minutes, you didn't shoot. So you had to put the gas pedal down and try to keep yourself under control and get out of that line. Pick up the weapon, load it, pick up your battle sight, and start firing. And I'll tell you, if you want to try to see if you're going to be able to handle a stressful situation, put yourself in a situation like that. Run a couple of miles, pick up the weapon, and see how fast you can pull that trigger and hit something.
Kind of like the biathlon that they have in the Olympics, you know?
Uh-huh. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's going to show you how comfortable you really are with that weapon, you know?
That's
How
right.
well you've trained with it and how conditioned you are to it.
That's right. But, you know, that's just one thing you have to stop and think about. You stop and think about, well, I've got to have something that's going to fit first, something that I can handle properly, something that I know, both functionality and accuracy-wise. And it's also the fact that you have a stressful time frame. Now, I don't see a whole lot of lanes in a shooting range, civilian, that will take that into account.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you get a crash in the middle of the night, you get up, your heart's
Adrenaline's
pounding
pumping,
like a
you're
jackhammer,
breathing, you're kind of twitching a little bit.
and
Yeah.
you're wondering what's going on, and you shake the webs out enough to try to analyze the situation, and then you confront an intruder, and it's like, what next? You know, you got to assess what he's doing. You know, has he got a weapon? Has he got distance to me? Keep distance between you and an aggressor. Space is your friend. And if you run into all those scenarios, you become more and more comfortable with not only yourself, but with the weapon and knowing what to do in a situation like that.
Oh, I agree. And so let's kind of shift the discussion a little bit. So a couple things. So if you are the new, you know, first time handgun buyer, if possible, try to get yourself some sort of a course or a class on firearm usage. If you could do like a defensive handgun course for a couple hours, or maybe do a one-day course. It would have been nice to have done something like that before I bought my first handgun, because it might have changed what I bought and maybe what I thought about guns and so on. So it might be a good idea to get some training first, or maybe get some time with the trainer, like say an hour, testing out the different guns and get comfortable with it. If possible, do that. The other thing to remember now we got to talk about the liability component, because you might be more set on just getting that gun to defend your family than thinking about the ramifications of actually owning that gun. And this came up from some comments that Plain Reality has just made over here on the YouTube side. So the big question is, you need to ask yourself, you might be dead set on getting that gun to defend your family. If and when the moment arrives that you need to defend your family, are you ready emotionally, financially to absorb that liability? Are you ready to possibly take another human life? And I don't want to scare somebody away from getting a firearm, but I don't want you to be a scared gun owner, or maybe a scared gun owner that's going to make a bad decision and end up on national news, you know, because the news is going to make you out to be, you're going to be accused by guilty by the mass media before the trial starts if you defend yourself. Now, I mean, it depends on the situation, but like you said, you know, as it is a tremendous amount of responsibility being a firearms owner, it's even more a tremendous responsibility when you conceal carry that weapon, knowing that you're out in public and you have a lot of decisions to make. Would you have to defend somebody else if you needed to? Would you intervene if there was a situation where somebody was in trouble? Are you going to put yourself in that kind of liability? And so that's kind of a heavy, I've had sessions where I've just sat there and thought, you know, if I had to use this, am I ready to go to court? Because in Nebraska, there's a civil liability clause that exists where, and it may be this way in 50 states, if you shoot somebody, okay, there is that civil liability that can come back at you even if you're found not guilty. There's still the possibility that they can say that you were negligent or you were reckless or they thought you made the wrong decision even though you were simply trying to defend your life. You know what? You don't want to use that firearm unless you feel that your life is in absolute peril or the life of somebody else is in peril. And if you don't intervene, somebody's going to die. All right. So I just, and this is kind of heavy words to throw out there, but you might be all gung ho on getting that first gun. You've been watching the videos. You're pumped up to go to the range. Hell, you might have bought your first box of ammo. You don't even have your gun yet. Think about the ramifications of what's going to happen if you have to use that firearm, and not to mention the fact that you may lose that firearm. That $1,500 pistol that you bought that's just sweet as silk might get confiscated during a trial. So
Right.
there's a lot of personal liability that pops up. Go ahead, single shot.
There's one more thing, and I want to mention. This is extremely serious. Once you pull that trigger, that round leaves the barrel, you're not calling it back.
Yeah, that bullet's not going to come back, and that single round could change your life forever. So just think, do you really want to step into that kind of personal liability? If you are comfortable with that and your family's safety is the most important thing, I mean, and again, we're not going to push any one particular brand, but consider going along with some sort of firearms, maybe concealed carry insurance and so on. Defense Dad, yeah.
Well, that's what I was just going to touch on.
Do it. Yeah.
Get yourself concealed carry insurance. Because if you do pull that trigger, there's a very good likelihood you're going to jail at least for that night, and you're going to have legal costs. So for the company I go through, it's $15 a month, and I'm covered for up to $1 million in court costs and liability. So that's imperative. If you're going to carry a gun, spend that money every month and get yourself insurance, just like anything else.
Yeah, we've had situations in Nebraska, even this summer it happened, where a person was defending themselves with the firearm, defending their property with the firearm, and that person is no longer alive. And I want to talk about that situation, what happened to that person, but there was the trial, there was the charges, the person thought they were acting in self-defense. And I mean, when you pull that weapon out, if it's determined to be brandishing or you were making the initial threat and now somebody's dead, I just don't want to see anybody end up in prison because of this, or liable and making payments for the rest of their life because they ended somebody's life. So, I mean, these are heavy thoughts that we try not to have in our minds all the time as gun owners, because it kind of brings you down and makes you wonder, do I even want to carry this firearm? Should I even wear it to Walmart? Because what would happen? So that's why you need to have the mindset that you're only going to draw that firearm, as an absolute last resort to preserve your life or the life of somebody else. But again, you got to have situational assessment. You might see somebody getting beat down in the parking lot. You pull your weapon and you shoot the person that you think is the aggressor. Well, how do we know that person wasn't being attacked and they finally got that initial aggressor on the ground and they're defending themselves? We don't know. You don't know these things. That's why it kind of reminds me of the kid that was running down the street with the AR-15. He's running down the street. What I heard in the background was people saying, hey, he shot somebody, get him. And that's the mentality, the mindset of the people coming after you. They might think you're the bad guy. You might have been defending somebody's property and somebody took a shot at you and you ran. You go down the street and now look where you are. So I'm just saying that it can turn into a very ugly situation. So this is kind of the dark side of being the firearm owner, is the reality of actually having to use that firearm. So consider getting some sort of liability insurance or concealed carry insurance if possible. So Defense Dad, does that insurance cover you in your home or not?
Yeah.
Would that fall under your renter's insurance policy or homeowner's policy?
It covers me in my home, and it also, and this might be kind of controversial for some people, I pay the extra. There's a small extra fee every month, and it covers your kids too, because my kid's very young, but if she has to, if something happens to me and she ends up pulling the trigger, she's covered too. And I don't want that situation to happen at all, but I also know, let's be honest, the national pastime is no longer baseball, it's litigation. So whether you're justified in the shooting or not, whoever pulls that trigger is going to jail.
Yeah.
Of some sort. So that's just my 2 cents. I also wanted to touch on back to the safety issue.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it's kind of the safety is a safety net for them. They think it's just, they call it a safety, so it's going to be safe. But
safety on the firearm, just so people know, we're talking about the firearm safety now. We're going back to the safety. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to go real quick on it. So it becomes a crutch, though. When I first started carrying, I had a gun that had a safety. And every time I looked around and I thought, oh, there's a potential something here, I'd find myself clicking the safety off. But what you don't realize is how many times you touch your gun when you're carrying the thing. So you're giving yourself away and bringing attention to yourself. So since then, I don't recommend a manual safety on a gun.
So
depending on the model, 1911, you want to keep it cocked and locked. You might want to consider keeping the safety on. Depends on the firearm. It does depend on the firearm, in my opinion.
In my experience, most of the people who say don't use a safety were told that by a firearms instructor. That's one of the reasons there are lots of firearms instructors that they have the whole, shoot them and drag them back in the house mentality. They really shouldn't be teaching. The other thing is that most people don't know how to use one. So I think there's a flip side to it. I think there's a if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But you've got to make that choice on your own. But for the noob, yeah, they hear the word safety and that's what they think it is. It's I guess if you've had training,
it's a tough decision. It's like, do you recommend it or not? Yeah.
If your first handgun training or your first firearms training involves using a safety, and you learned how to use it, and you got used to using it, it wouldn't even be a second thought. It just wouldn't be a second thought. If your handgun instructor hands you this Glock and goes, it doesn't need a safety, it's on the trigger. Or, you watch YouTube Video X and he goes, safety is for bleep, and all this other stuff. Then you might have that sort of, but on the other hand, if you come to that conclusion on your own from your experience, I think that's a better approach. Like what Defense Dad was saying, I think he learned it from a practical application for himself versus what some air quotes expert just told him. The thing about the safety is, if it's on the gun and you don't like it, just leave it in the off position. It's like a seatbelt. If you really are against seatbelts, just don't put it on. It's as simple as, well, it might really, come on. If moving your gun around makes the safety flop off and on, dude, that's a cheap gun. So,
Yeah.
but and in some cases they can be removed. In some cases they don't come with them. In some cases it's on the trigger. But I think that there's a lot more about that and other things with regard to guns that you get when you're a newbie from your gun buddy down the street who trained you, and he's the one who says shoot him and drag him back in the house, or that firearms instructor who's just looking to get their $100, $250 off of you, and there is no law in your state that says they have to do this, this, and this in order to be licensed. Because I could put a sign in my front yard, firearms instructor, $99, and I'm not breaking the law here.
I think as somebody who's maybe new to firearms or somebody who's looking at buying that first firearm, get your information from a variety of sources, read some reviews, watch some videos, talk to family members that own firearms, maybe get to know your local mom and pop gun store. You really should look at that's why I don't ever let just a straight, 5-star review ever sell me on a firearm. I want to talk to somebody that has one or get into some of the forums and ask people that might have them. You should do a little bit to educate yourself as much as possible. But here's the thing. If you go to the range and rent those firearms and you find what you think is the best firearm for you and you're comfortable with it and you're okay buying it and taking it home and you're going to do whatever it takes to be a firearm owner, then that's great. If that works out for you, that's absolutely fantastic. And if you don't ever buy another gun again, you've got something to protect yourself and your family. Wonderful. But I'm just saying that you really should try to get your information from a variety of sources, to educate yourself as much as possible. Single shot. What's that, dude?
One quick comment about safeties.
Yeah.
One quick comment about safeties.
Yes.
The safety isn't on the gun. It's what's between your ears.
Mm-hmm. That is the true safety.
So
I've heard that. I was going to make that. I was going to say that
the safety.
Ago. Yeah. Yeah. The safety between your ears.
Use your head.
Yep.
If you know that weapon, you know what it's about, you know how it operates, then that's the first thing. That's where that first spark comes from to pull that trigger. It's right between your ears.
Now, if you find that perfect firearm and it's only available with a mechanical safety, then it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I have firearms that have mechanical safeties. I don't want to have a discussion for an hour on this, but I think that it is something that's going to pop up, and you might have somebody like you guys had said earlier. Well, that YouTube video guy might say, if you've got a safety, you're a this or you're a that. If you think you have to have it, and I thought I needed one initially, and as I've grown in my knowledge as a firearm owner, my experience, I've just discovered that if the gun is in the holster and it stays in the holster, it's not going off. That's what I tell myself, and that's something I've explained to family members too. Because I'm thinking, if they don't have as much experience or practice as me, and they would need to draw that weapon, would they remember to flick off that safety? That extra second could be a life or death, delay, right? And so I guess I'm not a big proponent of mechanical safeties, but you might find a firearm that you don't have a choice. That's just what it has.
Well, and I'll just be very clear, just to not to delve on the play, but I'm talking. I don't want safeties for a carry gun. Now, any of the guns that I let my daughter handle and we're shooting have a safety on it. I think there's a very big distinction in that, because I'm at times handing the gun between me and her, and she needs to know how to operate that. But for a carry gun, I don't personally recommend a safety anymore.
Yeah. Oh, what happened last night? Kingpin says my AR stole my car last night. Oh, geez, I hope not. Hey, let's check the YouTube comments real quick and see if we have anybody throwing anything out there. A few people are talking about some of the models that they purchased, some of the mistakes that they made. Buying something that's a little bit too small, not testing it before they got it, just going strictly off of reviews.
Now,
and yeah, go ahead.
There is something about making some mistakes with some of your initial firearms, or even ones later on down the road. If you don't want to sell it, or you can't find a good price for it, or trade, and you're stuck with it, air quotes, stuck with it, it may come in handy, because you may be taking somebody to the range for the first time. And if you've got a greater variety of guns to shoot, you're probably going to have a better experience than if you just have one or two, or they're all the same kind of gun.
Same model line.
So
basically. Yeah.
if it's not going to break you to hold on to that, right now you might go, well, I'm young and I'm single, and what do I care? It's just me. Right. But one day down the road, you might have that special person in your life. You might have children. You might, you don't know. So another thing too is, with the price of them going up more often than going down, you might be able to trade it. Like at a time right now, you could probably trade a gun you don't like or ammo.
And chances are you're going to make money off of it. You're not going to lose money, because you probably bought it when it was $100 cheaper 5 months ago, or $50 cheaper 5 months ago.
But if you just got the person who says, I want one gun that does it all. We all know that isn't true. Okay. And I'm never going to own another gun, and just give me the gun that does it all, blah, blah, blah. And okay, then they're not going to understand that. I mean, I was at Bass Pro Shop a couple months ago, and here's this little old lady and her husband pushing a cart with a grocery list they had just gotten from the concealed carry class they took. They've never used guns before. They don't know anything about guns. They just have a piece of paper that the instructor gave them, and they're looking for everything on the paper. And it's like, lady, we're in a time where there's shortages on stuff. You don't walk in here like you're at Walmart picking up milk, bread, and eggs, but that's what she thought it was. And there were a bunch of things on that list. They would be absolutely useless to her. And then the kid at Bass Pro was trying to sell her like crappy brands of this, crappy brands of that, trying to add things to the list that they didn't need. And I'm like, no. And she's writing down and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I know the people at Bass Pro don't like that, but I've seen a Bass Pro guy almost throw an AR-15 sale away. And I've seen it's like, just because they work at a gun store, just like a YouTuber, just because they work at a gun store doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're talking about. Just like you're on YouTube does not necessarily mean, I'm going to give you everything from my point of view. I'm going to give you everything from my experience. I'm going to give you, if you go, well, your needs are different than mine, then my stuff isn't for you, right? You watch my Milsurp videos and be like, why would anybody want one of those crappy old guns, right? So I think that the opportunity is there for everybody to develop what works for them, and then they start spreading their experience. The problem is, if you don't open your mind to it, you'll never get there. You're just going to have that gun that sits in the nightstand that you got 50 rounds for, that you don't really know how to use. Yeah, you took your class. Yeah, you got your card. Yeah, this, yeah, that. But so it's a real difficult thing for somebody to get over that hump where, because it's like, I don't want to go down this road. I don't want to become a gun person. Okay, well, that's a lot of responsibility to have and not want to become a gun person. So,
right. Just simply explaining to them that, you kind of need to, if you want to be able to keep this right, to do so. I mean, there's a lot more that comes along with it, but man, I'll tell you what, and also a lot more you have to learn. So it can just be an ugly situation. So let's just maybe throw some recommendations out there. So if you are in the market for a new firearm, these are handguns that we've tried or owned that we could recommend that you try, not necessarily go out and buy before you try, but let's just throw some options out there. You guys can recommend whatever caliber, whatever model you want. I can maybe share a little bit on what I fired before and what I really enjoy. So Squib, I'll start off with you. Is there something that you could recommend that might make a good first handgun for somebody who and we can go into different categories. Let's go full size. Let's go full size pistol. Is there something that you think is kind of a nice, like, full size handgun if somebody wants something for home defense, a larger gun they're not necessarily going to conceal carry. They might want a range pistol or something they can travel with. Squib, do you have any recommendations at all? Any particular line you recommend? Any good luck you've ever had with anything?
Okay, my 3 go-tos for that would be a 1911,
Okay.
a high power, or an M9 92 FS.
So we got the Beretta M9, we've got the
Yep.
Browning high power, or any 1911. Now,
Any
if it's
1911
1911 shopping,
Yep.
I'd recommend you maybe step up to something with more than just like the standard GI sights on it. I
Yeah,
prefer
yes.
3-dot setup.
Yes.
If you might get okay, you say go get a 1911 and you go buy the entry level Rock Island GI, and then you realize those iron sights are really hard to pick up. And there's nothing wrong with Rock Island Armory; they make fantastic firearms. But maybe try to step up with something that's got a fiber optic sight or a 3-dot sight, or some side sight system that's an improvement over the blades.
Those Bomar sights are awesome, but a lot of people don't like them for concealed carry because they might snag. I don't have an issue with that, but you can get the Novax, which will do that as well. Now, the problem with that is, I'm glad you said start off with a full size. So the problem with that is somebody's going to get that M9 or that 92 FS, and they're going to go, the grips are too wide. Somebody's going to get that 1911 and say it kicks too hard, which it doesn't.
No,
somebody's going to get that high power, and
or it's too heavy. It's too heavy.
Yeah, it's too heavy. It's
weighs 3 pounds. Yeah.
But if I was going to go full size, and you said in your experience, those are my 3 go-tos.
M9 is a great recommendation, your Beretta 92 series. And the nice thing, once you start looking at a particular line, there are many different sizes and shapes and styles and models of Beretta. And 1911, you might be able to get something maybe more of a mid-size that's more comfortable to you. You might be able to get something that's a little bit narrower grip. So once you kind of look at a particular line, look at the different models that company has to offer. Because you might, like me, I don't have an M92, but I did have a Taurus PT92, which was close to an M92. But I also did have a Beretta 92 FS Compact that I absolutely loved to shoot, and that thing was great. And I mean, I actually preferred it over the full-size 92 because it was a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller. To me, it was easier to conceal. It was a very smooth shooter. So you really can't, in my opinion, I got to agree with you. I fired all of those handguns that you just mentioned, and I would recommend them as models to check out. Now, for me, my 1911, you and I both have the Ruger SR 1911. I love that. I have had a Rock Island Armory GI model 1911 chambered in 45 ACP, and it was fine. It was fine. I mean, its takedown and cleaning is a little more effort than just like your typical polymer guns, but not much. And the more you clean with that firearm and the more you practice with it, the more comfortable you're going to be. So, Scuba, I would say those are definitely 3 solid recommendations or like lines to buy into.
With the 92 FS or M9, there is one upside that's a downside. If that's your very first gun, it's so easy to field strip and clean that if you get something else, you're going to go, this is too much work. The 92 FS is so easy to take apart and clean. And people have seen the movies where you can take the slide off, and Forgotten Weapons did a video where they proved that if the moon and the stars are aligned perfectly, you could take the slide off. But the reality is that it's not going to happen in real life. Okay. Jet Li is not going to take the slide off your gun while you're trying to hold them at bay. But that same thing, though, that makes it so easy to take apart. So you'll get spoiled if that's your first gun, and then everything else will just be like, oh man, this is just too much work.
Now, do understand when you're looking at a 1911 versus the Browning high power or the Beretta, M series, you're talking double action, single action versus a single action trigger pull full time. So do practice with those because they're 2 very different trigger feels between the 1911 and an M92. And then I do recommend that you do practice some full double action trigger pulls. If you get yourself a Beretta, drop the hammer and practice doing full double action pulls because it's a different feel that, once you go to the single action, that it's a whole different kind of trigger feel. It's much lighter and you might find it a lot more comfortable. You might also enjoy the 1911 trigger pull more because it's more consistent from first shot to last shot. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. All right. So good. 3 solid recommendations to look into, whether any kind of a 1911 line, do your research, see which one feels the best. And the nice thing about 1911s, you can spend whatever for a 1911 platform firearm. You can get into it for as little as say $350, or you can spend whatever you want. You can get the Cabot Meteorite 1911s for $2 or $3 million. So I mean, that's the cool thing about the 1911s. You've got many different options, and the same thing with Berettas. I've seen some of the M92 selling for like $449. You can get into a regular Beretta M92, one of the 92 variants, or you can spend $1,500 on a customized 92 if you want to. So you've got lots of options. Okay. Defense Dad, let's move on to you. Can you throw some solid recommendations out there for firearms that you own or have owned that might make a great first gun for somebody?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
man.
I'll give you three, and one's out of production anymore, but my first gun was a Ruger SR9. Loved that gun, other than I'm left-handed, and there was a couple things I didn't care for about that.
Yeah, that's a good gun.
Yeah, I love that gun, except for it burnt my trigger finger, but that's because I'm a lefty. Currently, full-size, my full-size carry gun is an HK VP9. So my recommendations are probably different than most of you guys, is because I'm left-handed. I don't want to have to buy something that I have to modify to work left-handed, like a 1911. I don't want to have to automatically put a different slide release or whatever on it. So I tend to lean towards either the HKs or the Walthers. I have both. I have a PPQ and I have the VP9. I highly recommend those.
Okay. And those are, I hear a lot of good things about those two. I get a lot of comments on those guns. I've never tested either one of those two, but I've shot yours before. And a lot of people make comments on the videos about them, about how awesome those pistols are. And again, that's another one. When you get into those lines, you have some caliber options. You've got some size options for firearm size. So you might like that gun, but maybe not in a full size, maybe like the compact or the subcompact option better. So those are two excellent recommendations out there too. And here's the thing, this is where you and I might have conflicting, and I'm going to give my own personal choices here in a little bit, but the Taurus, G2C and the G3C and the PT111 G2, tremendously popular firearms, inexpensive. In many places we can get them for under $200, but you had a negative experience with your G3C. So what happened with your G3C?
Well, so I had
you shoot it.
I had both positive and negative. So I had a G2C prior to that.
Okay.
And I had somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 rounds, and not a single malfunction other than like Winchester white box. So I trusted that gun, I had great luck with it. I took my certification test with it.
Mm-hmm.
Got the G3C, and less than 200 rounds, and the mag release fell out, and that's what's at warranty work for Taurus right now. So, and to be honest with you, this might sound a little petty, but now that I've had problems with it, once I get it back, I might be trading it for something else, because I don't necessarily, because it was supposed to be part of my carry rotation, and I've kind of lost trust in it at this point. So
I might buy it from you too.
I would say,
I'm not as a carry gun, but as a spare to take to the range or something, just to fiddle around
right.
with. I kind of miss having. I had several PT111 G2s and never had a problem with them. I've got my buddy who bought his first pistol this summer actually ended up buying a G2C, and he bought a Beretta APX, and so he's got two, and the G2C is going to be his carry weapon. And they're similar, the G2C and the G3C, but the trigger mechanisms are different, and so that's something that people need to keep in consideration. I like the trigger of the G3C better personally, but the G2C, the PT111 G2 is great pistols,
I do too. The only thing I wish I would have taken my own advice that I tell people with cars: don't buy the first year production of something. Let them work the bugs out. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have held on to my G2C longer and then bought a G3C a little bit later.
I was one of the last people to put a gun video up on YouTube, out of the channels that produce firearms content. I think I waited 6 months before I did my G3 video, because I thought, let's let them get things figured out, And I'll talk about the G3 here in just a little bit. So good recommendations, solid recommendations across the board. So those of you watching, make sure you're jotting these models down and then go look and see what they offer in that series. See what feels comfortable, rent them and shoot them. Okay, single shot. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I'm back, and let me know if there's too much background noise, because I'm rolling here.
No, we hear you pretty good. Do you have any recommendations for the first-time handgun owner? Are there any models that have been solid for you, that have been fun to shoot or comfortable, or something you'd recommend? What do you got?
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree with a lot of the guys about the 1911 as well. That's a good one to start.
See, there's a lot of people saying, no, I wouldn't recommend a 1911 as a first firearm. My SR 1911 has low recoil. It's comfortable to shoot. It is heavy, and I probably wouldn't necessarily conceal carry it. I've got an outside the waistband holster for it, but you could always buy into, what a commander size model, or, smaller, a compact. Once you get into that platform, you've got many, many options. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If it's your first purchase firearm, that's what I was getting to. But if it's your first, then like I mentioned before, you got to go with size and caliber. And also, something that I don't believe has been mentioned is the revolvers. Yeah, they've only got 6 to 8 rounds. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
But I carry a 327 Federal Magnum, an SP-101. Got a 4-inch barrel, but I'm comfortable with that weapon. And as far as the safety is concerned, when I pull that weapon on the way up into battery, that hammer's coming back for the first shot. And that first shot is fired, and I double action the second one. So, you know, it's all in what you would consider to have in the scenario that you're thinking about. But those two there, I really think would be, you know, a good consideration. Your smaller compact semi-autos, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you like a semi-auto, then the G2C or something like that, the Taurus.
G2C, G3C, and then there's also the S series. They've got the
Stuff like
single
that.
stack models, which are a little bit thinner. The G2S, I don't think they make the G3S yet, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's out yet. I'm sure they'll probably show that off at SHOT Show this winter. That they're going to come out with the G3S, or maybe come out with, you know, like a slimline G3SC. I don't even know, like G3C whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
A single stack compact G3C, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I stopped into a gun shop here quite some time ago, and I was with a friend of mine, and there was a lady talking, you know, about her first weapon and stuff like that. And I'll size a person's hand by putting mine against theirs. That gives me a pretty good judgment of what they can handle for size. And what she was looking at was a 6-shot revolver. I said, well, ask the guy to let her put her hands on it, see what she felt. You know, run her through the safety. Is now wrap your hand around it and see if it's comfortable. And she liked it. The thing was, is 357 Magnum, but that's fine. You got 38 specials to shoot in that. That's another thing that you could take into consideration with these revolvers. This 327, I've got the option of three other different calibers if I choose to do so. I've got the 327 Federal. I got the 32 H&R Mag. I've got the 32 Smith & Wesson long. I believe it will handle the shorts as well, so it's actually 4. So you got one weapon, but you got 4 different calibers that you can practice with. And believe me, in a stressful situation, and you're loaded with 327 Federals, you're not even thinking about recoil.
Man, you guys are giving me all these ideas on what to mention. Not to mention, just, I don't know what it is about me and revolvers. I shoot them better, like, you know, in single action, I shoot them way better than any other guns that I ever test on the channel. If it's just the low weight of the trigger pull, or just the length of your barrel that leads to a little more accuracy. I'm not sure what it is, but I always enjoy shooting revolvers on the channel. Now, when I do my tests, you know, the double action pull, if you don't practice with it enough or stage the trigger well enough, you might be fairly inaccurate with it because you've got a much heavier trigger pull. But there are some revolvers that have great double action trigger pulls too. So yeah, don't push out the possibility of a revolver. I mean, you can get yourself into a great revolver. You know, you look $550, $500. You can find a decent revolver that's going to work well for you, or less, depending on what you want to spend. There's always something there at your price point, which I think is one of the best things. Now, I wouldn't recommend you go with the cheapest revolver you can get, but definitely do some testing. I mean, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, you know, great brands that you should look into for revolvers. I'm trying to think what else we've tested. I've tested some Taurus revolvers on the channel. I did own for a short period of time the Taurus Poly Protector, which is a 357-38 special polymer metal kind of hybrid revolver in terms of the frame. Those are also some great recommendations too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that's definitely don't move out the revolver option. So good options there. Hey, we've also got. Oh, go ahead, Sandals, or go ahead.
That Taurus Ultralight, it's shaped as the Tracker series, but it's in an ultralight frame.
Yeah,
titanium along with steel.
Yeah,
that thing is a bear with a 44 Magnum round in it.
Oh, I'm sure.
But you drop it back to a 4-inch barrel.
Yeah,
drop it back to the 44 special. Though it tames it right down, and it's not too bad at all. So it just goes to
always an option. Always an option
that you have.
Hey, single shot, you're cutting out pretty bad, buddy.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much.
Well, that's okay.
I'm moving.
That's right. No, that's all good. Hey, man, you're giving some great advice. I mean, we didn't really talk about revolvers. We really hadn't mentioned them much today. But yeah, I mean, if you just want kind of something that's, I don't want to say idiot proof, but I mean, you just simply point and pull the trigger if you need to use it. I mean, it really is, that's something to consider. But then the caliber choice is something you want to think about too. You want to make sure that that person can practice with it. And it's not too uncomfortable to shoot on a regular basis. But I don't recommend a snub nose 44 Magnum for a first firearm. That was probably one of the most painful fire. My Rossi that I shot on the channel was probably one of the most painful handguns I've ever fired in my life. The thing was not fun. I'm like wincing by the end of the video. I bought a box of 50 rounds, and I thought halfway through the box, I'm like, Jesus, am I going to be able to finish this? Because, I mean, it was like every time you pull the trigger, no matter how you gripped it or held onto it, it was like you were slamming your hand on a table as hard as you possibly could. That's what the recoil felt like. And, well, not the recoil, but the shock going through the grip. So I can't recommend a 44 Magnum snub nose as a first handgun. Let's just get that out right now. Don't let anybody sell you on that as a first handgun, okay? If you get the 357 Magnum, that's fine because you can always go 38 Special Light or 38 Special Plus P, and that's not going to be quite as stout as 357 Mag, so that's a nice way to think about going if you're going to get a revolver. But real quick here, let's let Sandhill Shooter go ahead and introduce himself. Sandy, how's it going this morning, brother? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good. I got up extra early this morning just so I could be the first one here, so here I am.
Did you want to make a bit of an announcement about something that was posted on Facebook last night?
I wasn't on Facebook last night, I guess, so I don't know what was posted.
Congratulations that were being thrown out at you.
What? For what? I don't know what happened. I was working last night. What are you talking about? Oh, you mean that one thing?
Mm-hmm. That little thing that happened to you. What's that little thing that happened to you?
It's kind of a big thing, I guess.
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah, I did announce here a while back that I was going to put my hat in the ring for a spot on the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association board, and danged if I didn't get in on my first run through. So
nice. Congratulations.
Very appreciative for the support from everybody, so thank you very much. And those of you that are in Nebraska that voted, I really appreciate that too.
We are the Trabi, and we approve this message. Yeah.
The term starts in December, so Defense Dad, you just keep your comments until then. He's already been texting me right in my butt about do this, do this, do this, do that.
Yeah.
I told you one thing, and their website needs work.
Hey, Sandy, welcome to grassroots politics. All right, opinions are like ale. Everybody's got them, and they all stink. So,
Sandhill, you work for us. You work for us.
Well, I work for Defense Dad and Travis. I mean,
pledge your loyalty.
I honorarily work.
I was kind of hoping.
I honorarily work for you in Single Shot. So
I was.
You guys can be honorary members. You just don't get voting privileges. But anybody can join NFOA.
Yeah, you guys should. I mean, that NFOA is fantastic. There's no pay for the people that volunteer to be on it. People are putting in their own time, their own money, and they're defending the rights of Nebraska firearms owners. And you can join even if you're not a Nebraska resident, just to be part of the cause. And the NFOA is a fantastic organization. They do protect our rights as firearm owners in Nebraska. They're doing a lot for us, a lot more for us than a lot of national organizations are that have no major appearance in our Capitol Hill or our Capitol building. So, yeah.
And I will say this too. Now, yes, I agree with Defense Dad. The website is a bit archaic. It needs to be brought up to the 21st century. And that's one of the things I'm going to find out once I have a voice. I'm going to find out what the feasibility is of that. Because I don't even know how expensive it is to update all that. I don't know how expensive an app would be, but I know an app would get a lot more people involved with the organization. So that's all the kind of stuff I am going to learn here in the next 2 years. But if you go on the website, once you become a member, then you have access to the forum. Even honorary members from out of state have access to most of the forum. And they're old school internet forums where you put up a question and then people, answer it all down below. But there's also spots in that forum for buy, sell, trade, literally anything gun related. All the stuff that Facebook won't allow us to post or talk about or sell, any of that, you can get to that on NFOA's forum. So if you've got that gun that maybe you, like Squib said earlier, I was listening when I was in the shower I just couldn't talk until now.
Oh, that's a bad visual.
What, me with suds all up in my hair? No. But anyway, I heard what Squib said about, you get that gun and maybe it's not the right one, and now you're kind of quote unquote stuck with it. Well, you don't have to be. And there's places like that you can go just post it up and depending on where you live, you might have to just say that the buyer pays shipping. You're going to have to pay for the shipping costs for my dealer to ship this to your dealer. But I mean, that's how internet sales are done anyway, no matter where you live. So I just wanted to mention that is there, and anybody can get to that. I had a couple other things I wanted to sound off with real quick, and
go ahead, man. Yeah,
I can't stay too long. We're getting ready to.
Well, Gizzard Gary's going to go live pretty soon here in a bit too, so I was going to throw my recommendations out and wrap it up. But yeah,
I got two things coming up today. The NFOA member social is going on today, just outside of Tacoma at 88 Tacticals facility. So we're heading up to that this morning, and then tonight we have tickets to go see Chad Prather live in Omaha. So just those of you that know who that is, you can be jealous. But no, there are two things that we mentioned earlier as far as guns for first timers and things like that. And I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in.
Do it.
And they're kind of related to each other, actually. So when people are saying, don't get a 1911 as your first firearm, and it might not be the best one for your first firearm. Well, to me, that's kind of like saying, your first car, the car you learn to drive on, don't make it a manual transmission. It's going to be a lot easier to learn on an automatic. Okay, well, that might be true, but if you learn on a manual, then you're going to be able to drive anything. You can always go down to an automatic once you learn that manual tranny. And so I guess the 1911 in my mind is kind of like that. If it's your first gun, that's all you're going to know. You're not going to know that it's harder to take apart than an M9 or Beretta 92 series. You're not going to know that it's got a safety on it, unlike a Glock or something like that. You're not going to know any of that stuff if it's really your first experience with a firearm. So whatever you pick, just make sure that you learn it inside and out. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing too that kind of goes along with this is, when it comes to manual safeties and things like that, well, again, if it's the first gun that you're used to using, that goes back to learning the gun inside and out. When you practice with your unloaded firearm, that draw stroke, which you should be doing even as experienced carriers, you should be putting on your top shirt, coat, whatever, and learning how to draw from concealment and practicing that. Make sure that flipping off the safety is, part of your process. After it's drawn and leveled, then flipping off the safety and putting your finger on the trigger should be just muscle memory. Mm-hmm. And that again that's kind of what Single Shot was saying, where the safety's between your ears. It becomes practice. It becomes second nature. It's kind of like when you learn on a manual transmission and you go to drive an automatic and that left foot goes up to hit that clutch that's not there. Well, if your thumb comes up and goes to flip off a safety that's not there, what harm is that? It's not there, pull trigger and fire. So it's not that big of a deal in my mind, as long as it's what you know and it doesn't mess you up. But as a first-time fire owner or a new firearm owner with fewer firearms, I would say continuity would be a bigger thing. Don't buy a 1911 and a Glock and then, right away and expect to learn everything you need to know by going polar opposites right away. That seems more confusing than anything would be. To me, I would recommend against that part. Flipping off a safety is no different than having a Glock in a level 2 holster that you've got to release a catch on the holster. That's
a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one extra motion, but it's a motion that you can practice until you don't think about it. So, when you first learned how to drive, you thought about everything. You were nervous and you were tense and you had both hands on the wheel and you stared straight ahead and you had to remind yourself to check gauges, check mirrors, all that stuff, and then after driving for a few years or 20 or 30 years or 50 years, you're like, okay, yeah, I can read a book and shave and drink coffee while I'm driving down the road.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you should, but I mean, you just get to where you don't think about the driving part, and you can put that on autopilot. And if you draw your firearm enough, and you'll put that safety on autopilot too.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole safety thing, I just wanted to mention it because somebody might chime in on the video, well, should I get it with the safety or not? I mean, geez, I don't like to say yes or no, because it just really depends on whether or not you can get that weapon that you want without the safety, whether or not you're training with it. I mean, I hate giving that advice because I don't want to be the person that says, I personally don't, because I don't want to have to worry about the mechanical aspect of that safety failing when I need to use that firearm, and it shouldn't, and they probably don't. But I mean, it is just one more piece in the way of you pulling that trigger. So
that's kind of like asking, hey, I'm going to get some new shoes. Should I get the ones with the Velcro straps or the laces? Yeah. No, I mean, I can't tell you that.
Yeah, you got to go with what you're most comfortable with. What's. So, all right, man. Well, hey, I do appreciate that. Do you have any particular models you want to toss out there, maybe that have been great for you for firearms that you purchased that you recommend for a first time gun?
Again, keeping with the continuity, I wanted simple. Mm-hmm. So my first purchase was the Glock, and I know it makes Squib's ears bleed a little bit when I say Glock, but Glock. I'm
going to throw a couple out there too. So yeah.
And then okay? so again, when I bought my Shield 9, I bought the one without the manual safety, but just because I wanted continuity. When I bought my Tx22, I bought the one without a manual safety because I wanted that continuity. And I could get used to a safety, maybe not right away for a carry gun. I would need a lot of practice to get used to a safety on a carry gun. But Sandhill's Sweetheart is not experienced. Even I'm not saying I'm really experienced, but she's still relatively new to the firearms world, and so I wanted something that it doesn't matter which pistol in the house we have that she picks up, it's the same everything as far as the Glock, the Shield, the Taurus, her EZ, or her PPQ. None of them have a manual safety. She can pick any one of those up, aim, squeeze the trigger, and it goes off. And so in a high stress situation, when you're not used to that safety, then that can get you killed. And I just want to throw that last thing out there. They can get you killed. Having a seatbelt on can get you killed in a car wreck too. That doesn't mean that seatbelts are bad. You just, if you've got that safety, you need to learn how to use it. And don't give it to somebody that's not used to one and expect it to save their life. At the range, who cares? You pull the trigger. Oh yeah, the safety's on. Flip it off. Pull the trigger again. If in a defensive situation, that's potentially life or death. So two completely different scenarios, and just be prepared for each one accordingly, I guess.
I agree.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for the invite, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. We got these Gary's going live at 9:00, right?
Is he? Yeah, I think so.
I think so. So you guys, I don't want to keep you much longer, so we'll start to wrap up here. But no, I appreciate you jumping in, and congratulations on your newly appointed position. This is great. This is awesome.
Appreciate it. We'll take over in December, so we'll see what happens then. Join us Tuesday night, 9:00 Central Time for the Get Off My Lawn podcast. We skipped the last 2 weeks, and I'm not skipping this week unless there's something happens and the house caves in or something. So
okay then.
The minute I say I'm not gonna miss this week, then I'll be
or high water. It's gonna happen
or something. So
yeah. No, thank God. I think we're basically out of that season for Nebraska. So yeah,
barring an act of God or a medical emergency, we will be live this week.
I don't think we've had hail in October in Nebraska yet, but it is 2020, so God, who knows at this point.
Now that you've said that, we're gonna get. I'm still waiting for frogs or locusts.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God! All right, so let me go ahead.
I was just say thanks again. Later.
Take care, man. Have a good one. Yep. You guys make sure you get over there and subscribe to Sandhill Shooter, and everybody that's on this panel today, make sure you get over there and subscribe to their channels. Lots of great content. So recommendations, I'm just going to throw a bunch of them out there for you. So if you are in the market for your first firearm, here's some models and recommendations I want you to consider. Okay. The Beretta APX Centurion, they're about $350 if you can find them locally. That's what I've been seeing them at. Beretta APX Centurion feels very similar to kind of like a cross between an M&P pistol and a Glock. Great handgun. That was one of the most popular ones that we shot last week. Burned through a lot of 9mm with that. Everybody liked the the trigger feel, the lack of recoil, the ease of use because it's a fairly beefy, chunky gun. The slide looks like a Toblerone candy bar and a Glock had a child, and they're very, very easy to manipulate. Great gun, and I mean, my friend that I borrowed it from had put many rounds through his. We put some rounds through this one also. Easy to clean, easy to take apart. On the 22 end, if you want a 22 long rifle handgun, I recommend the Taurus Tx22. We have one. Defense Dad, you have one. Sandhill Shooter has one. My family, we have another 2 in the family. I've got 2 other family members that own them. If you want one just as, I would say like a practice gun or a range gun, that's kind of fun to play around with. Maybe not necessarily as your sole home defense gun, but again, that's an option. The Taurus PT111 G2 and the G2C. I like the G3C, but I don't have any experience with it. So if you can get a G2C, that's great. The G3C has a little bit better trigger to it. The Smith & Wesson Shield, whether it's a 1.0 or 2.0, any of the Shield series, there's lots of different sizes and models and calibers you can choose from. So rent some different Shields if you like that route. They're a little bit thinner, a little bit easier to conceal. Great pistols. I had one of those a long time ago when they first came out. And from the Ruger, the Security 9, I think Kingpin has done some videos on his. Very comfortable gun. It almost feels like a budget-friendly version of a Glock 19. Security 9 is great. The Ruger SR9, those are a great value if you can find them. They've also got the SR9 Compact, which comes with different magazine sizes, and it gives you increased capacity. The Smith & Wesson M&P line, the full-size line, the 9, the 40, the 45, there's different sizes, and so those are definitely ones to consider. Great build quality. I would say the M&P line is battle-proven at this point because of the number of law enforcement agencies that use it. I'm sure there's some military use out there somewhere, and the M&P 9s that I've always shot have been great pistols. From the Sig Sauer side, I really like the 228s. They're kind of a nice compromise between a larger SIG gun and a compact, so the P228's a great pistol to recommend. If you don't mind spending the money, the 228s run anywhere between $700 and $900. But if you're going to get just one handgun, I love the 228. I do have experience shooting other SIG models on the channel, so check out my channel for that. The Taurus G3, we have a couple of those in the family, the full size. Those usually run around $300. They offer a lot of value for the money. G3s are great pistols, but I've noticed I've got a lot of comments as of late on my G3 cleaning video where several people have chimed in that they bought them, they've disassembled them, and they can't get the barrel to go back in the slide. They say that it's like impossible to get the barrel back in. So I don't know if Taurus had a run of G3s that had barrels with tolerances that are so tight that you can't even get the barrel back in. So if you're going to buy a G3, if they would disassemble it for you in the store, make sure the barrel's going to go back into the slide. And I mean, that's just, I don't know what it is with that. My G3 was fine. My stepdad has a G3. That's fine. It was in the thumbnail of the photo for this podcast. That was the one that we shot. And it was great. It ran just fine. Revolver side, I love the Ruger GP100s. I think those are great. Revolvers. So consider that. I've tested those on the channel. And then from the Glock side, I personally have a G17 Gen 4. And I've also fired a Glock 19. I don't own a Glock 19, but both of those are great. Just one guns if you're going to get one, and that's all you want it for, And the thing is, understand that once you get into Glock or SIG or Smith & Wesson or even Taurus, there's different sizes and different calibers. So rent a variety, try a variety, or sample a few from that series and see if you like it. Because if you don't like the ergonomics of one gun from one line, you might not like the ergonomics of the next size up or the next size down. So try a variety of pistols. So that's a big list for you, but you can then write that down. Think about what we told you to do. Think about what point of use do you want for this firearm? What is your budget looking like? What caliber are you most comfortable shooting? Do you want to go 9, 40, 45, 10 millimeter, 357 Magnum, 357 SIG? So you've got a lot out there. So if you take that information to what we've given you today to your local range, if they do rentals, try to pick up some of these and test them out and just go with what works best for you. But then also consider, again, the liability of being a firearm owner. That's something to consider too before you buy that first gun. So that's about all I got for today. I mean, that's a lot of information out there, and hopefully it wasn't too daunting, but we tried to spread it out over almost 2 hours for you this morning. So if you are considering your first firearm, there's a lot to think about, but really in the end, it does come down to personal preference and what you're most comfortable shooting, carrying, and so on, and owning. So any final words you guys want to get out there before we finish up and get everybody off to Gizzard Gary's chat this morning? Single shot or Defense Dad, go ahead. Defense
Sorry.
Dad. Yeah.
Biggest thing for new gun owners out there, if you go into a store and the only thing they'll show you is a Glock or a 1911, and if you say you want to look at anything different, they act like you're an idiot. look for somewhere else because there's lots of guns out
Yeah.
there. Not that those are bad guns, but there's more out there than those two.
I want to read off a comment that was posted earlier in the live chat. I saved it here just so I remember. Mario Mosen said, people are surprised when they shoot a small pistol and how snappy they are. And that is something that it could come to a surprise to you if you've never shot a gun before, or if you just go out and buy that gun because it fits in your pocket, it fits in your concealed carry holster, it fits in your purse, it fits in your
smaller
knife.
version of that bigger gun that you just fired. Oh, it's the smaller version. It's easier for me to. It's going to fire just like the bigger one.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
It's not to say you shouldn't have that, but then it goes back to the whole. Now I've got a full size for training and a small one for concealed. So it kind of circles back to going down that rabbit hole thing. So just understand that just because it's small and lightweight doesn't mean that it doesn't kick as much. On the other hand, like you were talking about, Travis, earlier, the 22 long rifle, that it doesn't have that kick. So whether you get a big full-size heavy one or you get a small light one, you're in pretty good shape. But it's not necessarily the best self-defense route. There's so many factors involved, and I want to read that one off because I think that's something people need to consider if they've never handled a gun. They've got very little experience. That it's counterintuitive to think small, light gun, big recoil, but they will snap your wrist back a little bit. Yeah, it'll sting.
And, even 380 versus 9mm, I've fired 380s before that have been painful to shoot, surprisingly, or compact 380s that are just a little more unwieldy in the hands than, say, the slightly larger 9mm. So just because it's a smaller caliber doesn't mean it's necessarily going to kick less. It really does depend. Even like my Makarov pistol, before I swapped out the grip on it, it would sting a little bit when you pull the trigger on it, So that's, we didn't really get much into, caliber choice is going to be down to you when you finally decide on that firearm, which caliber you want to go with. But just because it's a smaller round doesn't mean it's necessarily going to have less recoil, just for the record. So, okay, good point there, Squib. Single shot, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, check out my channel, Single Shot with an exclamation point. And also one thing too, if it's going to rehash what we've said, but consider your situation, consider your carry, consider your caliber, shoot several, find out which ones you like the best. But if anyone on the live chat has a question, by all means, shoot it to one of the folks here on the panel. We'll be glad to help you out as much as we can. We love you all. We want you all to have a good experience out here. Have fun. And first and foremost of all, please be safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
One
don't.
more remark. This is a little bit off topic, but this is my close. Remember, America moves by truck.
Exactly, man. I agree with you. Man, what you do for us, you keep this place running, man. You keep this country running. So thank you for the work that you do, Single Shot. Heck yeah, man. All right. Man, this has been a great episode. I feel like we've covered a lot, and hopefully we didn't leave anybody, kind of out there hanging, not knowing what they want to do. And again, you can always email me at thecalibercorner@gmail.com if you've got some questions. If you post comments on the video, I try to respond to as many as I possibly can. Positive and negative. And I don't know what it is about this weekend. It's been full of negative comments from people, man. I've seen the gamut of comments from people, but I'm still going to respond back to you. And I'm going to try not to delete your comment unless it's just absolutely ridiculously obscene or something. But we'll try to respond back to you. So if you got questions, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much about it. So we haven't had a Sunday morning episode in quite a while. Lots of great people watching over on the YouTube side. So watching today, we got a little Patriot in the Dark and Ozzy Orsborn. Squibbload's out there and over here. Plain Reality in the house. Sandhill Shooter. Drucifer's out there too. Tacos and French Fries. Fluffy 10mm Jeep Guy. Rich White's out there. G23's watching today. The Men of Tupperware's watching too. Let's see here. Tac Nerd 1.0 is out there. Makes a good point. Expensive is not always the best or better. Let's see, who else was joining? You guys had a lively conversation going on today. A lot of chatter going on. Cameron Bartlett's out there also. Jason Stewart was watching today. Otherwise, I think let's see, Scott P938, Mario Mosen chiming in for us too. DM Foz is out there watching. Thanks for watching today, guys. I appreciate it. Kingpin out there and over here too. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. So Squiblipped over there and over here. And the last thing I forgot to mention, I have a family member that's heavily invested in CZ firearms. They love CZ pistols. I've never fired one I didn't like. So do consider, CZ pistols also, your P10 series, whether it's the compact or some compact or whatever. And then the SP series. CZs are wonderful. And many times you'll find them in stock because around here especially, it seems like they just don't seem to sell out as quick as a lot of other brands. And FN pistols are wonderful. They've got some fairly aggressive grips, so understand that before you buy into them. But FN pistols are wonderful too, Fn-9 or the 40 or 45, so do consider FN. So again, that's just more to add to the list, but really comes down to what you're most comfortable shooting and what you enjoy the most. So that's what it is. All right, so this has been Caliber Corner episode number 156. I appreciate all of you watching today, getting up on a Sunday morning, or if you're just now watching or just finishing up the episode later on. Thanks for watching. It's great having you here, and we'll keep putting out more content your way. We should be back next Saturday at 8 a.m. We'll see what the topic is going to be. Maybe we'll get more into compact conceal carry, make some recommendations that route, because here, we're just throwing general models and general lines at you to help you try to find something that's going to work for you. So maybe we'll talk compact concealed carry next week. So that's it. Y'all have fun. Be safe. And as you know, we will talk to you guys soon. And see ya. Adios. Yeah, go ahead.
Bye, Alicia.
Bye, Alicia. Adios. We all want to